All right, we are ready to jump into our first unit, our first section. Remember, this chapter is all about algebra review, going over solving equations, things that you learned in algebra, but we will use all the time. So we want to make sure you are comfortable with them. So let's go ahead and dive in. Today we're just going to cover 1- and 2-step equations. Next time we'll do some more complicated ones. Recall that to solve an equation, I have a little typo there, that should be an equation. Recall that to solve an equation, you must do a series of inverse operations, and that will undo the equation one piece at a time. Inverse are things that cancel out. So you have addition and subtraction are inverse operations. Okay, multiplication and division are inverse operations. This one's a little weird, but distribution, when you distribute, and factoring. We'll come back and do more factoring down the road, but distribution and factoring, like getting out a GCF, a greatest common factor, those are inverse operations. They can cancel each other out, let you get back to the original thing you started with. And then the last one, squaring and square rooting. And this goes for other exponents also, but the only ones we'll deal with are squares. But if you take the square root of something and then square that, you get back to where you started. So let's do a couple of these shorter ones. Like I said, we're just doing 1- and 2-step today. So let's go ahead and jump in. All right, for example 1a, we've got r plus 18 equals 13. What's the inverse of adding? The inverse is subtracting. So we want to subtract 18. But remember, anything we do to one side of the equal sign, we have to do to the other. So we have to subtract 18 from both sides. Now on the left side, those cancel out. Plus 18 minus 18 gives you 0. So we just have an r. On the right side, we have 13 minus 18. That's going to give us -5. On 1b, we've got x minus 14 equals 0. What's the opposite of minus or subtract? Or not opposite, what's the inverse of subtraction? And that's addition. So we'll add 14 to that side, which means we have to also do it to the other side. Minus 14 plus 14 cancel out. So we have x equals, then 0 plus 14 is 14. For 1c, we've got 6v equals 84. Remember, 6v is the same as 6 times v. We just squeeze them together. The opposite of times is divide. So we're going to divide by 6. Fractions are really dividing problems, top divided by bottom. That's why I wrote this as a fraction. You could have written divided by 6 if you wanted to. I'm just going to put an arrow there so you remember those are the same thing. If we do it to the left side, though, we have to do it to the right side. So 6 times v divided by 6, those will cancel out. We're just left with the v. 84 divided by 6 is going to give us 14. And then finally dx over 15. So if we have x over 15, that's the same thing as x divided by 15. Fractions are just dividing problems. So x over 15 equals 3. To get rid of divided by 15, we will multiply by 15. And we want to do it to both sides. So divided by 15, multiply by 15, cancel each other out. So we have x equals 3 times 15 is 45. Now in 2-step equations, it gets a little bit more complicated. because we need to figure out which operation we're going to do first. And it's the one that is less connected to the variable. Almost always this means we'll add or subtract first, and then we'll multiply or divide in a two-step equation. Not always, but most of the time. So if we look at example 2a, you can see the -7 and the n, that's multiplication, and they are right next to each other. They are tied together. So that's the closest operation to n. So we want to do the other one first. So we've got the +8. How do we get rid of +8? -8 from both sides. So we have -7n our +8 -8 cancel out. And then we have -13 -8, that's -21. So now we've got our -7 times n, so we will divide by -7 to get rid of that. Our -7s will cancel out because it's -7 times n divided by -7. That leaves us n, and -7 divided by 21, I said that backwards. -21 divided by -7 gives us +3. Example 2b, same idea. We've got this -4v because that's where your multiplying is. That's more closely connected to your variable. So we want to get rid of the 3 first. Now remember, this is really a +3. When you have a number with no sign or in front of it, no operation in front, it's really just a +3. So to get rid of that, we will subtract 3. And we want to do it to both sides. Cancels out over there. So we have -4v. Don't forget to bring down that negative sign. Then -25 minus 3 gives us -28. And again, now we're into a dividing problem. We'll divide by -4. So our -4's cancel out. And we're left with v equals -28 divided by -4 gives you +7. 2 more and we'll call it a day. For C and D, both of these still have our variable tied up with multiplication or division, but this time they're dividing problems. That's why they're fractions, because they're dividing problems. So we see this right here. That's the last thing we want to deal with. So if we want to get rid of the -5 first, we will add 5. So our -5 plus 5 cancel out. So we have n over 2 equals, and then my 5 looks really weird. We have -7 plus 5. That's going to give us -2. Now this is, remember, this is n divided by 2. So we will multiply by 2 to get rid of that. So our divided by 2, multiply by 2 cancel. We're left with just our n. And on the other side, -2 times 2 gives us -4. Then our last problem, the n over 3 is the last thing we want to deal with. So let's get rid of that -9. Remember, it's a -9, so that's really saying subtract 9, like 0 subtract 9. So we will add 9 to get rid of that. Okay, our -9 plus 9 cancel out. On the left side, -12 plus 9 is -3. And then we bring our n over 3 down. This is n divided by 3, so we will multiply both sides by 3. The divided by 3 and the times 3 cancel out. -3 times 3 on the left side is -9, and then we're left with just the n on the right side. So -9 equals n. Now in algebra, you usually would turn that around and write n equals -9. In geometry, most of the time it doesn't matter, because you're usually going to take that number and go plug it back in somewhere else. So you just need to get the variable. You don't necessarily need to turn it around to make sure the variable is written first. But that's it for solving our 1 and two-step equations. So now I want you to work on the practice problems, and we'll go over them as we need to. Next time we will look at distributing across a parenthesis and combining like terms. Good luck.